Jay Horowitz with a special edition of Amazing Conversations with my friend of X amount of years, Lee Mazzilli. Matt, so I'm watching TV the other night in the middle of the Mets game. Gary Cohen announces, Willie Mays passes away. The first thing I think back to is when you and I worked together on the Old Timers game a couple of years ago. And I got to say, guys, without Lee's help, never would have gone on. I mean, he was
No, so
great.
I
No,
appreciate
that's
that.
you. Tell me what, never been a part of that before. 68 guys. And with all the good things we did, Lee,
Yeah.
probably what the best thing was when we retired Willie's number, especially what happens 2 years later. What do you think back, when, and not too many people knew what we were doing until Howie Rose announced it. But
Right.
what were you feeling about the time when we retired number 24?
Oh, he was such a fabric of New York, Willie. And when the Mets, kind of took that on and finally, I guess, lived up to what Joan Payson wanted the Mets or promised Willie when he came over in '73. And it was a long time overdue. And to see his number retired, I thought it was special on the Mets part. But it was also part of New York, like I said, the fabric of New York and Frisco. And so to see the Mets take that number, for me, it was kind of special, only because of my relationship with him back in the day. And it's kind of cool for me as a young kid growing up in Brooklyn, but to see that number up in the rafters, today.
You speak about your relationship with Lee. So Willie's last year is 1973. You're drafted first round by the Mets out of
Right.
Brooklyn. You forego Olympic skating career to play baseball.
Yeah.
And and but to talk about your relationship, meeting Willie that year, he went
Well,
down to
yeah,
the
it was kind of cool. Obviously for me growing up, Willie was my idol. I was a Giants fan or Willie Mays fan um, growing up. So I always followed Willie Mays. And obviously when he came to the Mets, during my high school, years, I got to appreciate that more. So I was fortunate enough to get drafted by the Mets. And while the draft, after I was drafted and the signing process and signed, they asked me, Joe McDonald, no, Bob Sheffing was the general manager then, I think,
right.
and Joe McDonald was the minor league director. And they said, what would you like to do? And obviously, the first thing I could think of was, well, I want to meet Willie Mays. And Yogi Berra was the manager at the time. So I got the chance, like most people that sign at a young age, they bring you down to the stadium. And I was sitting in Yogi's office with my dad, and I'll never forget this. There's certain things in life that you just don't forget. And I was sitting on the first chair that you walk in when you walk in the door, and I think Joe said to Yogi, "Where's Willie?" He goes, "He wants to meet Willie Mays." And they went to call for Willie, and he said, "Well, he's on a training room table right now. He'll be about 5 minutes, 10 minutes." And so we sat in the room and spoke. And then all of a sudden, he comes through the doorway. And, he had that kind of high pitched voice. He goes, and he said, "That kid." And he came into this room, Jay, and he was built like Adonis. He had big arms and forearms and big hands. And I remember as a kid, in high school, you weigh 160 pounds, but all of a sudden he walked in and I went, "That's what a baseball player's got to be built like." I said, "Well, I'm a long way off because I'm like 100 pounds lighter than him." And I just, when you meet someone that you idolize and follow, in your young adult life, and then all of a sudden, just he appears in front of you. Um, it was just what it's just what a special day. I'll never forget that. And I remember Yogi saying to Willie, he would say, "Hey, Willie, he's Italian. He's a good player." And then and Willie would say, "Oh, of course you would say that, Yogi." And my dad just loved that,
But did you
especially.
go down to Mississippi to see you
Yeah,
play Maz at
I
Jackson,
think,
Mississippi?
after I signed, Willie became a coach with the Mets and, would work the minor leagues. and he came down to Jackson. I was in AA in Jackson, Mississippi, probably right before I was going to get called up. So he came down. Can you imagine Willie Mays going down to a minor league ballpark at that time and teaching us, not only me, but the other guys on the team as well. And for whatever reason, we just developed a bond. And he was teaching me the basket catch I was doing at that time. And I have video of that, old video saved. And Jay, when I tell you how he would throw a ball up in the air and say to me, "All right, now do this and turn around and catch that," and I would say, "I can't do that." It's just like, I can't do what you do. And it was just special. So what people really don't know about him that I found out later on in life as well was he had a small circle. Willie didn't let a lot of people in for whatever reason. And I was fortunate enough to be one, I think, at times where you can call him and see how he was doing. And not too long ago, I'll tell you what type of person he is. And he had a big heart, big, huge heart that people really just don't know. I said this on Instagram that his heart was as big as any stadium you can go into, and just people didn't know that about him. And we spoke on a phone, and I called through a mutual friend, and he was having problems with his eyesight at the time, and I just called to see if if he was able, willing to talk, and how he was feeling at the time. And he says, "Yeah, have him call me." And um, so I just called to say thank you. His nickname was Buck. And I said, "Buck, I just want to call to say thank you at the time. So just want to thank you for everything you did for me, and just speaking to me, hanging with me, being generous to me." And he goes, "Oh, I don't want to hear that." Like that. He was that type of person. He goes, "I know that. I know that." And then he says to me, "Jay, here's the thing." Then he says this out of nowhere. And this is what really kind of grabbed me and went, He says, "How you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing good, Buck." He goes, "No, no, 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 no. How you doing?" And I went, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "How you doing financially?" I went, I didn't know what to say. And it was like, and I said, "Doing good, Buck. Can't complain." He goes, "Oh, that's good. That's good. That's what I want to hear." And it's like, who would say that? And
Yeah,
to me, I took that as when he asked that question to me, like he cared. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't
yeah.
like asking a question, like he really
No, no.
he wanted to know how you were doing financially.
Matt,
And
did you do the basket catch the whole career? I know you stopped.
no, 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 just at the beginning. And then you start to realize that you can't do what he did. But he helped out in a lot of ways, not just with the basket catch. I mean, I cannot tell you how many things I learned from base running and tricks of the trade. And I keep telling people this, and I teach a lot of his outfield um, uh, things that he taught me, and talked about baseball and base running. And I use that until this day, what he would teach. And it's amazing because the thing that I take from Willie was, in baseball, we all get things from other people, and it's like 6 degrees of separation of what we learn. So whatever I learned from Willie, let's say, Willie may have learned from Jackie Robinson.
Right,
And then
right.
Jackie Robinson passed it to Willie. Then Willie passed it to Roberto Clemente or Hank Aaron, and then or Joe Torre that I played with, or Bobby Valentine. This game is 6 degrees of separation, and you go down that line, and you see who they played with, and you say he might have learned those things from a Jackie Robinson. So that's what we do as players or former players, is we want to share that and share what we know. And I think that's part of that I see that is missed in the game today, for whatever reason. I know the game has evolved, but I think we miss some of that connection that we have in the past.
When we did it, I don't know if you remember, we took some criticism in the quarters, some quarters. Well, he only played for the Mets for a year and a half. He had blah, 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 blah. But the whole idea when we did this, and thank goodness for the Cones for, willing to fulfill a promise by my previous owner, is really what he meant to baseball, to legend, to the people around to New York. And that
Yeah.
was the whole premise of,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
and,
So my question to you is, who do you take criticism from?
well, the
They
fact
say
is
it's like
that
who? Like who?
he
What do they
dropped the
know?
fly, he
What's
dropped
that?
the fly ball in the '73 World Series. He didn't hit that well, but
See,
for
that's
me,
that's see, those are
it was
the
more about
naysayers. You know, those are the people that you don't want on your team or be
right,
around. They're all negative people. So one, if you ever played the outfield, and if you ever played in Oakland and knew what it is to play in a mid-afternoon game where the sun is
right,
really, I mean, the Oakland Stadium is not a stadium that was like Shea Stadium used to be, or City Field with 4 decks. It was 2 decks. The sun would peer through. It's a tough sun field. He was 42. I mean, if that was a night game, he probably puts that ball right in his pocket. So all the naysay, I mean, it's just those are the people that you kind of want to just write off your life, and like you don't want to be around the negative people like that all the time.
I'm just glad we did what we did, and when you think about Willie now that he's passed at 93, what's your favorite one memory you like to remember him by?
Well, like I said, the day that I got the chance to meet him for the first time was a memory that I will not forget. And listen, Jay, I, my kids now, they're old and grown up and parents, whatever, still talk about Willie Mays to me, and they know what he was and all the people that were a part of my baseball life, that helped me develop. So, boy, there's so many things. I mean, I can go back into the '70s, Jay, when they had the All-Star team. He had two all back then in '60. I guess they had two All-Star games for a couple of years.
Right, right.
And Ted Williams said that they created the All-Star game for Willie Mays.
Yeah.
That's kind of a
Yeah.
nice tribute,
Man,
So
I'm like you too. I've been in the game a long time, 45 years. I don't get awestruck when I meet. I'm fortunate
right,
enough my job to meet people, but our good friend Rusty Staub introduced it to me really for the first time in the mid '90s, and I couldn't even speak the first time I met him. I mean, he would. I remember you're too young to remember 1954. I remember
right.
Vic Wertz's catch in the World Series and was sitting watching the game with my father. So I mean, it was just a great tribute, Mass. It's great to let the people know really a different look from your view what really meant to you and to
Right.
baseball in general. And listen, I appreciate your time. Been a good friend, and really again, what I
Oh,
started with old timers again with success. A lot of
it
good
was.
friends.
You know what? The old timers day was fun, and you did a great job.
Well, with your help,
Players
really.
really, the players really love seeing each
Yeah,
other.
it's the
And
stories. The late John Stearns fighting his way back,
oh,
fighting cancer. Frank
but
Thomas
yeah,
going back with a broken back. 80-year-old, Steve Dillon throwing a pitch. We did a lot of good things. So it's a
a lot of
good
good things.
memories. But
And yeah,
uh,
and you talk about. Listen, Jay, you and I. I'm probably the first player you ever met
I probably yeah,
when you took the job for the Mets,
yeah.
right? You came in
1980, April
1980.
1st.
April 1st of 1980, and I
Yeah,
don't know if there's anyone left
yeah.
that was there in
Hey,
80.
hey, Lee,
So
Frank Cashin needs to speak to you.
you
You've been
want to
traded to
tell that
Texas.
story?
You've been traded to Texas.
Yeah,
Well, listen,
yeah.
I
But if
appreciate
anyone
your
had to
time.
tell me that, I'm glad it was you at the time
Well,
that made
listen,
that
Matt, I
phone call.
appreciate your time, and hopefully I'll see you at the City Field pretty soon, huh?
Yes, you will, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. I
Thanks
appreciate
again.
it as always.